Yeah, so let's get into our picks for next week. Now, just before we start this, there have been three games that have recently been canceled in the SEC, and these are ranked teams. We had Auburn, Mississippi State getting canceled. That happened on Monday, and then just today we got word that Texas A&M, Tennessee got canceled, and Alabama, LSU got canceled. Now, Texas A&M, Tennessee, and Auburn, Mississippi State are going to be moved to a later date. I'm pretty sure that's going to be December 12th, the same day that we have Vanderbilt, Missouri, and Florida, LSU. But since LSU is already playing that game, and the next week is the SEC Championship, I don't think that this Alabama LSU game is going to happen this year. It's sad to see because that's always a game that we look forward to, even though that there's such a talent difference this year and how these teams are playing. Especially this game was in Death Valley and it was a night game. It was a CBS game. It's just something in college football that you always love watching, and you never know who's going to win because in those situations, you never know. But sadly, it's not going to look like we are going to get that Alabama LSU game this year. But first game up in our picks, let's go with the Indiana Hoosiers versus Michigan State Spartans. Bernie, who you got in this one?
I've seen both of these teams play against Michigan this year. Michigan State has absolutely been awful in both games that they played that weren't against Michigan. Indiana looks really good on both sides of the ball. I like Indiana here.
Yeah, I like Indiana too in this one. They've been playing really good. They're a top 10 team for a reason, so give me the Hoosiers in this one. Next up, Georgia Bulldogs versus Missouri Tigers. Now, Georgia's been a team that just came off the loss to Florida. The mood for the rest of the season has changed and everything because that team is always, their expectation is to get to Atlanta, get to the SEC championship, win the SEC East, and hopefully make the playoff. But now that's not going to happen this year. They need Florida to drop 2 games, and which that is probably not going to happen. And Georgia needs to win out for that to happen. It's tough. And Missouri has been playing some pretty good football this year, but Georgia still has the talent and everything. Even though Missouri's at home, I do really like Georgia in this game.
I mean, I think Georgia takes this one pretty easily. Even though they have their struggles offensively, I think their running game is really, really solid, and obviously they're extremely good defensively, so I like Georgia.
Next up, we got Notre Dame versus Boston College, the two teams that have recently played Clemson. Notre Dame was obviously able to squeak out with the win against Clemson, but Boston College was the team who had the lead going into halftime. They had a pretty substantial lead, but they just couldn't hang on in the end and couldn't score any points in the second half. Bernie, Boston College is the home team in this game. Who do you have in this one?
As much as I'd like to pick Boston College, Notre Dame definitely takes this game. They looked really solid on the weekend, even if Clemson was missing people. And I think this Notre Dame team is legit. I think they're going to the playoffs, so I like Notre Dame here.
Yeah, they're the number 2 team in the country right now. Notre Dame's been playing some really good football, and this should be a game that they should win. It'd be a huge shock if they go out and lose this game, so I am going to take Notre Dame in this one. Next up, this one is actually really interesting for me. I know that there's a team in this one that should definitely win the game, but you never know with how this other team's playing, and that is Ohio State versus Maryland. Ohio State beat Rutgers last week. They are, I'm pretty sure, the number 3 team in the country right now. Ohio State's a really, really, really good football team. But then you're going to Maryland, a team who started off getting smacked in the season opener, and then they go out, they beat Minnesota, they beat the Golden Gophers, and then last week they beat Penn State at home, and it's a guy with the last name that you might be familiar with, Tulia Tagovailoa. Of course, that is brother of Miami Dolphins quarterback and former Alabama quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, taking snaps for the Terrapins. This is actually a very interesting game because of how good Maryland and Tua's brother has been playing. Who do you have in this one?
Their week one was so bad. Like they were really, really bad in week one. But you know what? Like you were saying, some big wins in the past 2 weeks, including the one last week. And their offense especially looks a lot better. This is a Maryland team that I really, really like. I would love them to be able to keep this a close game, so it's a fun one to watch. I think Ohio State takes it, but I think that Maryland might surprise you and make it a little closer than expected.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think that in the beginning of this game, this is going to be one where you're not going to watch it, but you're going to look down at your phone and realize that the score is like 14-14 early or midway through the second quarter or something like that. And you might turn on the television, but after that, I think that Ohio State will restore order because Justin Fields has just been playing lights out. He is such a fun and explosive player to watch this year. I've loved watching him so far. Next game, USC versus Arizona. USC comes off of the big win versus the Sun Devils. Now they go to Arizona to play the Wildcats in this one. Arizona isn't a great team, but they're not a bad team either. Who do you got in this one?
I mean, USC, obviously, they almost lost last week in that crazy game that we were going over before. I just think, first of all, I think they're just a good team, period. But I also think they're coming off just a ton of momentum. I think USC takes this one pretty heavily, actually.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't know too much about Arizona to make a judgment about that one, but I do know USC is a good team, and they are ranked for a reason, so I'm going to take the Trojans in this one. Next up, this is probably my most intriguing matchup of the whole weekend. A game that I'm definitely going to be looking at the score constantly. Right now it's scheduled to be on during the Gamecocks game, but that is Arkansas versus Florida. Obviously the big headline in this one being the return of Felipe Franks, who gets injured for Florida last year, and then Kyle Trask takes over and kind of becomes the star of Florida. And then Felipe ends up transferring to Arkansas. He's coming back to Florida after Florida has a huge win against Georgia. And after Arkansas has been playing some really good football, they beat Tennessee last week. This game, in my opinion, is going to be a lot closer than a lot of people will think it will be. I think that this could even be tied going into halftime or maybe even late in the third quarter, something like that. But I just think Florida's offense definitely comes out in this game and just is able to put up the points when Arkansas isn't going to be able to. So I am taking the Gators in this one.
I mean, I just want to point out, Arkansas has played some really quality games this year. The win against Tennessee, tight game against A&M, against Auburn as well. Arkansas is a really underrated team, and I think you hit right on it, that they got some fire under them, definitely some motivation for Arkansas to want to win this game. I'm not a fan of Florida's defense. I just think it's so tough to keep up with Florida's offense because Florida goes down there, they're putting up a ton of points, and it's going to come down to can Arkansas keep up with them as well. I think if it comes down to late in the game, actually, if this game is close in the fourth quarter, I'll take Arkansas with an upset, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think Florida takes it.
Next game, we got the Oregon Ducks versus the Washington State Cougars. This game is in Pullman, Washington. Who you got in this one?
I think it's really simple. I think Oregon goes undefeated this season in general. I like them on both sides of the ball. I think they're just such a well-run program. I like Oregon here.
I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to take Washington State in the upside. You got to make things a bit interesting here. I think Delora's going to have a really good game for the Cougars going into this game. I really feel good that the game's in Washington State, and I just feel like this is a trap game or something for Oregon. Washington State goes out and they beat Oregon State last week, who's not a good team, but especially coming back home, it's a lot easier to play at home. And I'm pretty sure there's snow on the ground out there in Pullman, Washington right now. So this could be a climate game that Washington State's just going to be used to playing in heavy snow that Oregon isn't going to be able to. I'm just going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to hope that Washington State is able to beat Oregon, and I'm going to take the Cougars in this one. Last up, we got two more. We got your Michigan Wolverines taking on the Wisconsin Badgers. This game is in the Big House. Who you got in this one, especially after losing to Michigan State and Indiana back-to-back, and then going back home to play a Wisconsin Badgers team who is playing some pretty good football?
I have to be serious here. This game is so hard to justify Michigan beating Wisconsin. Wisconsin looked really, really good against Illinois in their first game of the season. Michigan has not, especially defensively. They have so many coaching issues. Their offense is struggling. As much as I want to take Michigan, I probably think Wisconsin takes this one.
I probably have the same thing as you because Wisconsin, even though they don't have Graham Mertz, they still have been playing some really good football, and I'm excited to see them back out there. And I'm confident.
The only thing about that, though, is that Wisconsin has only played one game so far. Because remember, their 2 games of the season at the beginning got canceled. So Michigan
got canceled
does have
versus
that
Nebraska.
More, So Michigan has played more, which is the only way that it might tip towards them.
I'm kind of in the same boat as you here because our next and last game is South Carolina versus Ole Miss. Now, I'm going to release my preview for this later or whatever, but I've already released my pick show that South Carolina has not been playing good football right now. I hope that we make a quarterback change. I think that it is coming, guaranteed. The whole fan base has been saying for it. The whole fan base wants a coaching change. It hasn't happened yet, but Ole Miss is a team that is going to put up a lot of points, especially that they're playing at home in Oxford. South Carolina doesn't have the offense or the defense right now to stop Ole Miss's offense, and we don't have the offense to put up enough points in this game to be able to win. So I did pick Ole Miss in this game, although I'd love to be wrong. I'd love to be wrong about this one because obviously I'm a Gamecock fan till I die. I'm always going to be rooting for them. I'm going to have Ryan Helinski hopefully being the starting quarterback of the game, so I'm going to be cheering for him 100%. I hope we go and score on every single drive we have. I hope we go in for 7 turnovers, but if I had to be realistic about this one, I think I am going to go with Ole Miss. Matt Corral and like that whole offense, Jerron Ely, Elijah Moore is the leading receiver in the SEC. That is a very good offense. Lane Kiffin has them rolling, and I'm going to take the Rebels in this one.
You know what? I have no real reason for doing this, and it's kind of weird that the picks are going to go this way, but I'm taking South Carolina here.
Yes! Woo!
Yes, sir.
Go Cox. Atta B. Maybe I should be more like you. You know what? Let's switch my pick. Go Gamecocks. What am I even saying that we're going to lose to Ole Miss? We beat them last time we were in Oxford in 2018. Go Cox. We're going to go out there and win somehow. And if we lose, Muschamp's gone. So there's a win on both ends of that.